The South African Radio Astronomy Observatory is a combination of different observatories that work within South Africa. And we have been mandated to work with on the SKA project for South Africa. And as part of that, I think on a national level, in terms of research infrastructure projects and why this is important, the government had to, at a point, decide why, looking into the future, what kinds of science, what kinds of skills would be necessary for South Africa to be a globally competitive, country that is trusted to do science and trusted to, take on some of the world's most pressing issues. And one of those things then was astronomy, where we felt that, it would be good for South Africa to develop those skills to, take on this task of doing this. And I think if you look at any developed country that makes an impact globally and also locally, they are knowledge-based economies, right? So within that plan, where the government or South Africa had to think about what the future looks like, we knew that we had to develop a future that has people that are capacitated to, build technological and scientific research infrastructure projects that would be able to make us competitive. And that is how we, got to take on this project and build all the infrastructure that we have up to date, and then moving forward to the SKA. So the other advantage that we do have, obviously, is that South Africa and many African countries, for instance, have a geographic advantage in the sense that we have clear skies. There's not as much radio frequency interruptions. You have, much more silence in some parts of the area, such as where the SKA is being built as in the Karoo, in the Northern Cape province of South Africa. So that's something that we knew that we could leverage on, moving into a new future with new skills. On a national scale, as well as local, the understanding became that South Africa had to do well in developing skills and developing technological advancements that would be fit for the future. And as part of that, you had to develop, the youth and develop communities in a way that they can actually respond to that. So what Sereo then did is create a human capital development program that would focus on developing scientists and engineers of all kinds that would contribute to the construction of the SKA. And so what we did in that regard is that we have a program that focuses on students from early childhood development, little kids, where we have reading programs, for instance, to improve their reading. We have programs in the local primary schools, and where we, help them with math and science. And then we have programs at high school level where there's learner bursaries that are there to capacitate students and to ensure that they get the best math and science education. So what Sereo does, for instance, as part of this human capital development program, is that we hire teachers, math and science teachers in the local schools to ensure that, even though the children or the learners might be in a remote rural area, that they're still not as disadvantaged and they still get to have the best education possible. So as part of that program, for instance, we provide bursaries to them, we provide them with stipends for meals, we pay for their school fees, for their room and board, and we just, we also fund the school itself to have more, resources. We build cyber labs, we've built Wi-Fi infrastructure in the schools, we have other programs that we run as well, such as the robotics program, where kids in the remote rural Northern Cape can learn to code and build robotics and go and compete internationally, as Leono has, for instance. I think the world has shifted quite a bit when you think about how in the olden days, or a couple of decades ago, the most important priority for any organization would be shareholders, right? The point was that you had to, make the bottom line. So profit was what drove most organizations. And I think that the world has shifted quite a bit from there, where the stakeholders are probably the most important part of the organization. And you almost can't even get to good output or profits, at least in the business sense, without really considering stakeholders, and also, in fact, the environment, for instance, as a stakeholder. So our job has been, for me personally, working with stakeholders, my job has been to ensure that we as Sereo and the SKA has a license to operate, a social license to operate within communities, and that we have programs that are there to empower people, to invest in the youth, to build up the skills and capacity that's required to build the world's most advanced radio telescope. And that is a lot more based on the human aspects and making sure that all your stakeholders are engaged, they know what's happening with the project, they see themselves as part of the project as well. So my experience working with communities has been quite interesting, because you realize that, when we talk about science and research infrastructure projects, a lot of the time we speak about, the science output, but we don't necessarily focus on the process. And the process involves, having actual people with actual faces, having real experiences like Leono has. And, the process of just building the telescope is much more stakeholder based than we often acknowledge. So it's been a good experience. And I think working in remote rural communities as well is quite an experience, because there's a lot of areas for development. And I think Syria has done well in prioritizing communities for that. In our grants, we have community grants initiatives, for instance, that are bottom up. So they're community initiated, where communities have the opportunity to propose programs that are for community development to the organization. And then we support those those projects to, uplift the community. We also have business development programs that we run to ensure that the local economy is sustainable and it is growing in a way that would allow the community to carry on and move forward because of the presence of this research infrastructure project and the SKA itself. So that is, in general, my experience.
My experience with robotics was amazing. To see how they can build stuff without any information about how to do it, out of their minds, thinking and programming the maths according to what they give you at a certain point in the game. In the building, it is my strong point. I love to build, think about what I'm gonna do, and so forth. And the programming, it is not really my strong point, but I learn upon how to do it as we go into the competitions and international levels. For me, the experience was amazing. It was my first time abroad flying for my first time, and it was an out of body experience for me. At that time, I was still a bit young, so I couldn't imagine me going out of the country at such an age at my point in the competition. It is amazing meeting new people for your first time from other countries. Was just amazing how they we can experience with each other the ways of robotics. For me, it is something quite extraordinary to get in our town. There isn't much to do, so their science and technology can help me to become something I really dreamed about in the future. Yeah. My goal is to become an astronomist, because it's just amazing what they do, looking at stars and stuff. It was impacting because it learned me how to talk in front of people without the nervousness and stuff, so I can learn from an early age. Then I can I can learn to get stronger by speaking in front of other children without nervousness and so on.
I think for me, the last point, it really is just that, I think once with the existing Meerkat telescope that we have as, the precursor of the SKA, I think that will really help to position South Africa as a viable destination for science research and technological developments in the future, and to prove that we are indeed capable of delivering such projects of such magnitude, and not only for the local communities and South Africa alone, but really to the benefit of the world, and discovery and realizing, testing theories that we have about science, about the laws of nature, about how things actually work. So I think that's quite a great task, but I also think that South Africa really is up to the challenge.